First and foremost, my name is Ashlee Marie Preston, and my involvement with the case has been in that I am Gemmel Moore. So I was that youth that had to navigate a world that was racist, that was, in my case, transphobic, that was not considerate of the disproportionate realities that communities of color face. And when I first heard from Jasmine about the story and what was going on and the way that our community, those elected officials and people that we hold dear and that we trust and that we really depend on to do the right thing, were not showing up in the capacity that they needed to show up in, I was very concerned. As someone who, 2007, I was drugged by a wealthy white politico from Century City and taken advantage of and left on the side of the road. Although that was a traumatic experience, that was not the only experience, and it wasn't the only time. And so each time that I was taken advantage of and drugged and raped and all of those terrible things, I wasn't getting raped by an individual, I was getting raped by the system. The system that failed to protect me, the system that failed to show up for me, the system that failed to amplify the narrative and the experiences that I had to face while out there, and the refusal to really take a look at the barriers that stood in my way to progress and stood in my way to becoming everything else that their children were. And there were so many times that my mother should have got the call that you got. And there were so many times that she didn't know if I was alive or if I was okay. It was disgusting to watch the way media attacked you, to attack his mother, to try to reinforce that narrative that we're all hoodlums and we all come from broken homes and we don't come from places of love and there aren't people thinking about us, which is part of the reason why we fail to investigate, because who's going to come looking for them? Who's going to come asking questions? Who's going to speak up for them? And so I wanted to definitely be a part of that conversation. And one of the most important pieces that I want people to take away from this is that justice is non-negotiable and it's nonpartisan. There's this idea that it's un-American or it's unfitting for you to challenge politics within your own party. I am a devout Democrat. I'm a part of a Democratic club. And the thing is that justice is justice is justice, and silence is complicity. One of the biggest opportunities that we have to amplify that message and break that silence and reverse censorship, which is often weaponized against us, is to mobilize via social media. Social media is one of the most powerful tools because while traditional media has always been informative, and it's also biased and it's also bought. And there are many, as we're seeing with this case with Gemmel Moore, there are many people that are players in this, whether it be through their silence and their refusal to speak out and make a statement, whether it be through their relationships and the clubs and associations that they have that keep them from doing the right thing. We are up against a system, and the only way to dismantle that system is to take power into our own hands. It is important that everybody tell your friends and your family about the petition that we are circulating at justiceforgemmel.com or .org. .com, because petitions are a really powerful thing. I'm one of those people that I go to protests and I go to marches and I go to things like that, but as an African-American trans woman who doesn't have a criminal record, sometimes I fear that I put myself at risk if I'm out in the community, because we don't need to go far. We're a click away from seeing how much Black lives matter when Black men are being stopped at routine traffic stops and killed in front of their families. And when we're beaten up and our head slammed into the sidewalk and all of these terrible, egregious things that are used as fear-mongering tactics to keep us silent. And so what petitions allow us to do is come together for a common cause and not only advocate and spread awareness and keep ourselves safe, but it also makes them have to work 1,000 times as hard to keep up the censorship and the refusal to do the right thing and to show up for justice. And I know I just recently did a petition with another public figure that was problematic, and they were working with a nonprofit organization, and how all of that is tied in. You know, structures were up against the system. And I was able to put up a petition. I was able to share it on Facebook, share it on Twitter, share it, and within less than 72 hours, we met the objective. And they canceled that person's attendance to the show that they were honoring them at. So again, I just wanted to basically let people know the power of petitions, the power that they have on social media, because it forces people into accountability. Because censorship is a weapon, and it keeps us silenced, and people can't show up and support us if they don't know what's going on. It also gives people an opportunity outside of these communities and these structures and these systems to also show up for us and support us. I heard people say several times that Nana said they're waiting for something. We're waiting for this, we're waiting for that, we're waiting for that. They're waiting for you to get tired. They're waiting for you to be complacent. They're waiting for you to give up hope and to fall into that desperate, sunken place so that we don't show up for ourselves. The most important thing is communities of color, especially LGBTQ individuals, we need to show up and we need to tell our stories, because no one can tell it better than us, because as you were saying, no human involvement. They take away our humanity. And so when we show up our stories, Gemmel is not a prostitute. Gemmel is not a sex worker. Gemmel is not a drug addict. He is and was a person who was a son, who was a friend, who was a loved one, who was someone that was important, and he's no different than me. So people celebrate me and talk about all these amazing things that I've done, but that's who I am. I'm that person. And so we need to make room and space for those narratives and those stories, and when they don't show up for us, we show up and we take power of the press, and we restore the power to the people through sharing our own stories. And the petition is the first step to that. Please, justiceforgemmel.com.